You are looking at the best closer this city has ever seen.
Closer, huh? Baseball?
Attorney. I close situations.
Joining us to discuss this is Exavier Pope, a sports and entertainment
Joining us
attorney.
to discuss this is sports and entertainment attorney Exavier
Sports and entertainment
Pope.
attorney Exavier Pope joins me now to talk a little bit more about this.
Sports attorney Exavier Pope.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Now to the story that's rocked the sports world and beyond in the last 24 hours. Rutgers University men's basketball coach Mike Rice fired today after video surfaced showing him abusing his players. Now the question becomes, does the punishment stop at him?
Now the university is called into question as far as institutional control. And now you're inviting the NCAA to potentially investigate your entire school.
There was, a $50,000 fine and a 3-game suspension. And do you think that was enough, or did this warrant firing right from the start?
I absolutely don't think it was the right decision to make. I wrote about this morning about how Tim Pernetti should be next, essentially, because now the focus is on the university instead of Mike Rice and his actions. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and from a legal standpoint, do you think Rutgers can at all be held liable for, the assaults that Rice was putting on his players?
There's question as to that. I do believe the floodgates have opened to some civil litigation as relates to the players. They bargained for, when they signed a letter of intent, to receive education. They didn't get that. Mike Rice is part of that education. So you could easily see maybe some suits in regards to maybe the assaults, but in addition to not getting the benefit of the bargain of the education as well.
Rutgers alum and sports attorney Exavier Pope joins us now to talk more about the controversy. Thanks for joining us here.
Thank you for having me this morning. Good morning.
So I think it's interesting they're saying, that this remediation did not work. Yet in December, they renew the guy's contract for $700,000. What's your take on that?
I think it's unfortunate. This is not the first incident that he had. This is in his past. So Tim Pernetti talked about this being a first-time deal. Right. That's not the case. And so it's interesting also with the Tyler Clementi situation with him committing suicide based on the bullying with that situation. It was surprising that the school wouldn't be more sensitive to that issue.
Just tapping into your legal expertise. Guys that were abused by him verbally and you could argue physically, players, is there any legal recourse for them? Do you think there would be any legal recourse for them now that he's been fired?
You have to think about students signing the letter of intent, getting the benefit of the bargain, getting a good education, and maybe them not given the opportunity to do that by going to school. So they potentially may have a civil suit on that end, but maybe an assault charge, and the school being responsible for that from the civil side as well.
The president of Rutgers said, "Hey, I didn't see the video." Do you buy that?
That's tough because we're hearing reports that maybe he saw it in November and now he saw it only on Tuesday. I think there's an information gap. And so I think that more investigation is needed to determine really what did he know and when did he know it.
Now we have these faculty members and a dean calling for his resignation. You think these guys, their jobs are in jeopardy, the top tier here at the administration?
Absolutely. I think that at the very least an extended leave of absence for Tim Pernetti for an investigation as to what steps he may have taken and whether his actions went far enough, essentially.
When I was first looking at that, the one thing I couldn't help but think was, if they taped every one of Indiana's practices in the 1980s, what would we have seen a guy like Bob Knight doing? And to some degree, I'm sure some of the things that came out of this guy's mouth were probably not much different than Bobby Knight 15, 20 years ago. Do you think what he's done, and you see on this tape, is worse, or do you think that times have changed and given what's happened to Knight as a coach, there's less tolerance for what you see here?
I think that's a great question, Pat. Look at social media, the instantaneous response to things that happen. ESPN Outside the Lines. The response was huge. And I think that people have more access to information. So you can't do these things behind closed doors anymore. So I really think that's the difference as far as the times being a change and more information being shared.
But to Pat's point, what does it say about the culture of basketball today, probably all of college sports, that it takes the media to police this?
I think that's unfortunate, but it also gives the opportunity for institutions to self-police themselves. So if you do this, you will be found out.
So what are you hearing about these players that are talking about transferring based on the fact that he's now that Rice is out?
We have a local guy, Vincent Garrett, went to Marshall High School, 6'5" guy, possibly transferring. We'll see. He hasn't talked about it, but there's been rumors that he's transferring. And I think it's a good idea, potentially. But it's unfortunately, it hurts the school.
Yeah.
You know, and NCAA potentially might be investigating the school institutional control if you're not taking the right steps. So.
And this coach coached in Chicago in years past, and you would think, as big as sports have become moneymakers for some of these schools, that the president, that people wouldn't have known his background. This didn't just start this year at Rutgers, that people would have known. Does that put more pressure on the president and other assistant coaches to be responsible, who perhaps stood there and said nothing and certainly did know about it?
Absolutely. And I think that Robert Barchi may have known about this guy's past. This is someone you're hiring, essentially. But you're looking at wins and losses. He took Robert Morse to 2 NCAA appearances. But the funny thing is, he didn't do good.
Yeah.
11-3 to start the season. Tanked a little bit from there. Not a good record. So he should, just on basketball alone, he should have been fired. I'm just saying.
Exavier Pope, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate your analysis. Great stuff.
So Exavier, was there really any hope for Pernetti in this case?
No hope at all. Essentially, his performance on ESPN Outside the Lines was terrible. He basically tried to defend himself and defend Mike Rice. And when you go back on the evidence, it was clear that he made the wrong decision. And it was no way of saving Tim Pernetti at that time. You have to consider on that campus, there was a bullying of Tyler Clemency.
Right.
And so the school had notice of bullying on its campus, and then you have your own staff bullying other people.
Do they think there's going to be another shoe to drop? I know the university president was also aware of the tape back when Pernetti was first made aware of it too.
Yeah, well, there's reports that maybe Robert Barchi was made aware of it back in November, and then he says he was only made aware of it on Tuesday. If he's lying, he's gone.
Well, thanks so much, Exavier, for helping to break it all down for us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sports entertainment attorney Exavier Pope, the best dressed man in radio. Well, sports is a business. Let's talk about it. I don't know if this first topic deserves to be on Suit Up